Hi, welcome to the Apollo Flight Control Room. We're actually just one floor above the International Space Station Flight Control Room that you normally see, but here today we have with us to talk with us a little bit about what went on during the Apollo era and even a little bit before, it sounds like, a couple of the women who worked in the Apollo program in honor of Women History Month this month. So right now we're talking with Estella Gillette. And you said, let's see, you started in 1964, huh?
October 19th, 1964.
Wow, so that was even before Apollo was flying.
I think
anyway.
it was sort of just in the plans. The gates had just opened here at JSC in the spring, I believe. So even JSC was brand, or Manned Spacecraft Center was brand new at the time.
You got in right as it was beginning.
Yep.
So what were you doing back then?
I was actually hired as a clerk steno. I was hired into the Structures and Mechanics Division in engineering. Pretty much still the same place, Building 13.
Okay, so it was just kind of keeping track of everything that was going on, and
I was working with, I guess about 20 engineers or so, and they were involved with, I think they were working on thermals and structures and that kind of thing. At the time, I was sort of on the sideline as a clerk steno. Yeah.
Okay. Well, and what drew you to NASA to begin with? Was that on purpose?
I didn't even know NASA existed in 1963 when I graduated from high school.
It hadn't that long.
Yeah, it was a long time, yeah. But one of the things we did, I was class president, so we had, our theme was Children of the Space Age. So I was the treasurer, and there's a picture of me in a convertible, and it says Space Age, along with the other officers, and it says NASA Space Age. So that kind of drew me. I couldn't even apply for NASA until I was naturalized as a citizen, because I was born in Mexico. I had to be 18, and when I graduated from high school, I was 17, so I had to wait a little while. So when I passed the exam, I came out here for an interview. I actually had 3 interviews, and I got 3 offers, and I took the one in engineering.
Okay.
Not a bad decision at all.
It worked out.
It worked out very well.
So I guess, you were talking about children of the space age and looking at that in high school. As a woman and as somebody who had been born in Mexico, did you consider that was something that you could have a part in, or?
Actually, when I decided I would come out here, I was still living at home, my parents being very strict, very Mexican, and they said, what are you going to do at NASA? I said, oh, it's nothing but white men. What are you going to do there? And I said, well, I guess they offered me a job, so I guess they want me. But it was true. There was very little diversity as we know it today. It was a handful of minorities. Most of the women were secretaries or administrative types. There were a handful of technical women, but not very visible as the men were.
Right. And I guess now we have women astronauts, women flight directors, women engineers and scientists in all areas of the operation.
It's a very diverse environment, and it's still in the works. I think some would disagree that it's not totally balanced yet, but it was something that was rooted in where do you find your applicants early on. And so as the schools began to open up and women and minorities started to take more and more of the technical curriculum, then they became eligible. This is a technical place, so you needed people who could do that kind of work.
Sure. Well, and now we were talking earlier, you certainly didn't finish your career as a secretary at all. You finished, let's see, you were the head of the Equal Opportunity Office and then deputy of the External Relations Office.
When I retired.
Or when you retired?
Yeah. I didn't, this was such a place for great opportunity. It wasn't like somebody said, here, do this and you'll get there. It was more like, watch for the others and where do you want to go? I didn't have a degree until I was 40, and NASA paid for most of it. But once I didn't even need a degree to a certain point, but I wanted to be like the rest of the people here, which was, about 70% degree people. So for me, the education was very important. And then that opened up other avenues. I actually had a career as chief of the administrative office in the astronaut office. I was deputy director and then director of Equal Opportunity. With the director job, I was served on the selection board for the astronauts, which was, one of the highlights of my life. And then as I got into the EO world for 10 years. I needed a change, so I became the deputy director for the newly established External Relations Office at that time. And then I retired in '06. My husband and I both retired on the same day with 84 years of service together.
Wow,
So,
84 years,
84
that's
years,
impressive.
yeah, together, not just
but
mine.
still, yeah, didn't think you made it quite that far. I'm sure you got to see, though, a lot of history in the meantime.
I
Any
did.
stories to share? Or?
Lots of stories, probably don't want to share them all, but I had a wonderful career here, had wonderful mentors. I worked for Cliff Charlesworth, who was part of one of the Apollo guys on 11 and 13. Then I worked for George Abbey, who is, everybody knows George Abbey. I worked for a lot of the people who are now grown-ups, like Mike Kincaid. I watched them when they were young people. I came in as co-op, so it was just a really interesting career. There's so much opportunity. There's so much. Just step out of your comfort zone and go reach out to the others that you would like to become like. And I have absolutely no regrets having made the decision to come here. It was scary when I first came, but I certainly never felt excluded after a little bit.
That's great. Well, I'm and you've seen it, the whole spectrum. But what was the atmosphere like back when you arrived? Was it? I mean, there had to be exciting.
It was. It was kind of subdued,
Really?
I would say. People were more formal. You see the pictures of the white men
white ties
wearing the
and
white shirts,
black
little
ties.
skinny tie, and they actually did that. The pocket protector, they actually did that. My husband still has his sitting somewhere. So it was a very different environment, but it was a friendly environment. And I think you can still say that. It's kind of formal to a point. As we all kind of knew our roles. I think the biggest difference is there was a well-defined task that we had to do during that era. We had to put a man on the moon. It was a very well-defined future that we had at the point. We've done well with the rest of the time, but I don't think there was as defined a time as that time. So people knew where they were going. People were part of it, and people were very proud to be a part of it. I think all of those of us who are from that era like to claim that we were a big part of it, even though it was a teeny tiny little root that we might have planted. But worked with some fantastic people. And it was great to watch the evolution as to what NASA has become. The diversity. For me, that was a big deal. Having come as someone who didn't look like the rest of the people here, eventually that didn't make a difference because I brought something that NASA could use, even if it was my clerical skills when I first came here. And I think that's what it's all about.
Right.
What do you have that you can participate and then plug in and become a part of it.
And you mentioned earlier that you were on the astronaut selection committee.
I was for 10 years because the director of EO is the position on the board. Wonderful experience. I just cannot tell you what a treat, what a privilege that was.
Yeah, and I think you mentioned you had a hand in selecting, let's see,
Yes.
the current ISS commander,
Yes.
Dan Burbank, and flight engineer
and
Don Pettit.
Don Pettit, yes.
And our administrator, Charlie Bolden.
Charlie Bolden, I was on that selection board on the HR side.
Okay.
So I can tell stories about Charlie.
No, we're ready for that. But I'm sure you've got some great stories. Thank you so much for sharing some of them with us. We really
My pleasure.
appreciate
And
it.
thanks for the invitation.
All
It's a
right.
real treat.